Alright guys, I am not at church today. I have been hit really hard with just going down. Yesterday I knew I was exhausted, but I still went and saw Leigh. And I'm usually not a morning person. I need my sleep. But I did make sure I did keep that commitment. And then I did groceries, and yesterday I just kind of hit rock bottom and just was, trying to fight a migraine. And then this morning I was throwing up just because of the stress it has on my body. So that's kind of what's going on today, and I couldn't get to church today. But I did want to talk about confronting Leigh. I did wait in line for her autograph, and I showed you this yesterday. I waited in line, and I got her autograph. And usually a false teacher is someone who will not point you to Christ. Usually someone who is pointing you to Christ is usually pretty safe. But I did confront her because I had heard some things that didn't sound right before I did go and see her. I got her autograph. I told her I had just finished up the pro-life post-abortive healing class from a forced abortion. She was very compassionate. And I said, now I need to tell you something. And I said, I heard this thing about you that you have on your website, this connection with this reverend who is a pro-choice reverend. And I said his name is Reverend Raphael Wamak, something like that. And she's like, I have no idea who that is. And I said, okay, because, he was connected to you, and I really almost did not come here today, because if you are associating with him, I don't really understand the connection. And she was very gracious, and she was just like, no, I'm very pro-life. And she came out with how pro-life she was, and she, basically said she can't vet some of the people who are on her, who connect with her. And I understand that. And she was glad I gave her the benefit of the doubt, which I am too. And, I did take some good stuff away from her. And then following up today, with some of the critiques I've seen of her where she's teaching men, she is actually on their website. They actually do call her a preacher at one point, and they call her what else? Just that it is very open to men. She teaches in university, and she teaches men. And this for me is where it's done. If it's done on a regular basis, I do have issue with this. Women should be teaching women. Men should be teaching men. I know her D group teaches different genders, but she teaches both. So I haven't a problem with that personally. And I'm not going to judge other Christians who are kind of like, well, this is a gray area. I'm not going to die on this hill of talking to men. And, some people, when I did ask some other people in the church about this, some people feel like, what are we going to do? Barter the door. It is a very careful thing you should do, is to check the teachers. I know she is in with a lot of false teachers, as far as like different teachers that have been known to be false teachers. So there's a balance with separating. Some people separate from people who associate with false teachers. I think that is wise. I think you need to be really careful where other people are just, I will be like Jesus, where he was with the lost and he didn't separate from them. But Jesus also spoke very boldly against false teachers. So anyone not bringing you to Christ completely, I mean, yes, we want to come to Christ, but in every area, we also need to be biblical and have correct structures. So where there's a D group that is online, That's okay if you want to be encouraged, but do not use it as your main source of spiritual being fed. Your church needs to be the main place you get fed. And some of the structure probably isn't biblical because of it's not under a pastor, some of these studies. But yet you can go and listen to any study you want. So there is a fine line between all this. And to hear her being called preacher, I would, which I saw a video where they do that and the guy wasn't corrected. I would say that's wrong. And I would say I'm excited to use her material for me to get in my Bible more, but I would not, um, I'd be very cautious about the things I just talked about. And even though a pastor may tell a woman, yes, you have a gift of teaching, you should use it, the pastor also is accountable for who he allows to teach in the church. So, I'm not a big fan of Jen Wilkins in the Village Church, etc. I'm just not. And I have my reasons for that. So I'm glad I saw her. I'm glad I confronted her. She is obviously very pro-life. I don't know where the holding hands is with other people, but that is something to be very careful about. So we are to examine everything, to question everything, to make sure it is of God, to make sure it is in, the context of the whole Bible, not just bits and pieces. I did listen to Michelle Leslie, who critiques certain teachers, and we do need to be careful too of our wording in Scripture, that we do not, when we speak of Scripture, we're not undermining Scripture with our language and wording. So just there's a balance. I feel like I don't fall on any particular side here. It's not she's a false teacher, but it's not also, there's some things that do make you question, what is going on, some of the associations. So, take it with a grain of salt and just be careful what you're listening to.